Welcome back to the Autonomy Pod. Another solo episode from me, hopefully like the first one. We're just going to get rolling with these and get really stuck into today's topic. So today's topic is, it's one of my favorite topics and the reasons why autonomy were born and how it was kind of the fundamentals of the process. Everyone needs a framework. Now, to be honest, consistency, as boring as it sounds, is the key fundamental for most things. It's like if you show up like 60% of the time, you're probably going to do really, really well. If you show up 80% of the time, you're going to do really, really well. Those that could do 1% better for 365 days are going to be better than those that show up for intensely for 6 weeks a year and then do nothing for the rest of the time. So whatever you're trying to do from a skill perspective, because everything like dieting or muscle building or gymming, they're all skill related. It's the same as learning a Spanish lesson or learning Spanish, or learning how to juggle or learning how to write effectively, read. They all come better with practice. And practice happens through, consistent attempts of getting better. Now, the same comes to mind when it comes to dieting and creating change with your body. There's going to be, it's a finite amount of things that you need to focus on, whether it's nutrition, training, steps, lifestyle, and all of the intimate delicacies of that. So your calorie deficit, how many steps and activity you're doing, how much cardio you're doing. And, when you finite that down into specific goals that you need, whether that's 10K steps, 1,800 calories, 1,600 calories, whatever it is, there's going to be a set things that you're going to have to do on a week-to-week basis to get that desired result at the rate that you want to get it. So when you're looking at developing a practice or environment that will create consistency, you're going to need a framework. No one ever just by accident is consistent. There's always a methodical process to it. Now, for some people, they may fall upon those specific things because they enjoy it and they're consistent because they enjoy it, but still that means that they've got a framework to being good at it because they do it at set times or they have a routine around it. And being consistent is never by mistake. It's never a variable in which, I was just super consistent. Nothing is ever going to be like that. I wish, you could fall upon consistency as easy as you could fall upon, the bad habits that we all form that, we do day to day. But, consistency is one of those things that it has to be worked upon and it has to be developed and created over time once you know what the things are that you're trying to be consistent with. So in order to get clients and anybody in a consistent frame, they need to ensure that they've got a routine, especially if they're trying to do things that they've never done before, or they're trying to fit things in their schedule that may be either overstretching them, it might be relatively difficult, or it may be something that they don't want to initially do. You're going to have to get a little bit creative with their structure, routine, block out time for it, make it a specific event, because these things are not going to come naturally. And when we start with people with autonomy, there is a specific framework that we utilize from a nutrition perspective, training perspective, and from an exercise perspective that will allow you to just latch onto that framework. The whole age of, we'll just do what's best for you, or we'll fit it around your lifestyle, or we'll fit it around what you currently do, I don't think that personally works for most people that want to change their habits, that want to change their lifestyle. Because if we're going to keep you in the same habitual patterns, if we're going to keep you in the same habitual lifestyle patterns, you're not going to move away from the things that you're currently doing, which is probably contributing to your demise. If we don't move you away from, eating 3 plates of food at a dinner table, or if we don't move you away from having, your mum's cooking every single night who doesn't care about calories, or move you to a point of where you're thinking about the portion size in your mum's cooking, then we're not going to get to a point of where you can control your calories and you can't control your body composition. So having something that may take you away from what you're currently doing right now can be a very useful tool. One of the easiest ways to kind of break a habit is by taking it away from the surroundings that it's in. Take away the cookies from the cupboard so that when you go in the cupboard, there's nothing there to eat. And it's the same as, formulating a lifestyle that you want or formulating a process that you want. is that you have to sometimes take away the old process that was contributing to your demise to create this new outlook. So creating a framework will almost in essence create this routine, create this structure, and create these desirable things being done on a day-to-day basis. Now, when you start looking at creating frameworks, the old saying of just figure it out whilst doing always rings true. You can't have something individualized or personalized to you until you go and try it. Because, and I'll probably say this a lot on the podcast, but you're a very, very poor predictor of what's going to make you happy. We're a very, very poor predictor of what's going to fulfill us. And we're definitely a very, very poor predictor of what will work within our day for the most part. And that's just everybody knowing what they're not capable of or what they are capable of is something that we don't really know yet. We can always be more capable. We can always stretch things. We can always push it if we need to. But just testing and putting something in place will always be the best part to start when it comes to delivering and starting with a framework. Your framework should give you the most important parts of your day locked in. So there should be, time for exercise, your time for your food, your time with your work, your time with your evening, and then being able to, work backwards off the spare time that you have to put in all of the enjoyable things that you like. But that framework needs to happen in order for you to create consistency. Because like we said, consistency isn't something that you just fall upon. So the framework, in essence, gives that consistency and gives that layer of repeatable variables, repeatable practice. And if you can practice being in a calorie deficit every single day, you're going to get better results than someone that isn't practicing to be in a calorie deficit every single day. And if you're practicing getting to sleep on time, then you're having a better chance of you improving your sleep quality, which then improves all loads of other things. And the more that you can whittle your way down to a routine that is still flexible, but is at least in stone, start with at least the beginning of the week, and you maneuver off that, is always going to be the best place. And the beauty of any type of framework that you set up and any type of routine, that people write routines and they think that, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this for the next 12 weeks and I'm going to do this routine every single day and it's going to be perfect. And then they do it for 2 days and then they have to be a little bit malleable and then it ends up being a fuck it. Their food is, they forget to bring their food to work, so they hit the fuck it button, or they missed something in their diary, or they didn't do the 10,000 steps, or they didn't get to sleep on time. So then the rigidity in their mind goes, oh, well, if I didn't get to bed today at 9:30, then fuck it, doesn't matter for the rest of the week. All bets are off. But the key with most frameworks and most consistent structures are that both they have the element of structure and formalized day-to-day living, but then they also have that ability to be like malleable. You should be like one of those rulers that you used to get in school, the ones that were bendy and they make a funny noise when you click them on the end of the table, and they would be able to bend, but they'd still be a ruler, right? They'd still be straight and they'd still be hard, but they'd be anti-fragile, where you could bend it a little bit and it wouldn't shatter into a million pieces. That's how we should be with our frameworks and our routines. And those that are either too malleable, where they're like jelly, where if anything hits it, they'll bend to their will. And a lot of people will be people pleasers when it comes to frameworks. And that's why a lot of people will have struggles with being on a framework, is that it exposes their jelly-like behaviors and their mentality around holding true to what they want as opposed to other people. And whilst you can look at the outside looking in on a framework as a routine, as like something that is structured, that is something that is rigid, or something that is just making you do the same thing day in, day out, which it is, on a deeper level, by putting something like this in place, you learn about yourself. You learn way more about what your tendencies are when other people start voicing their opinion, or you learn about your tendencies when you get stressed, or you learn about your tendencies when something that's a higher priority starts getting in the way. And these are beautiful learning points of what, people often report when they go through, coaching or things in which will have some level of reflective coaching and that will have some type of routine. Because It's not about the successes of being 100% every single week. And actually, for the most part, the putting a framework and a structure in place will highlight some improvement points. And by highlighting those improvement points, it gives you places to look at from a mentality standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from just a strategy standpoint to help you get better. You'll be in two camps unless you've got it really figured out, shit sorted in the middle, is that you will be super malleable like jelly towards other people's opinions and, bend over backwards for other people, whether it's family, whether it's work colleagues, or whether it's, just anybody but yourself. These are the people that are people pleasers. These are the people that will take on other people's mess without giving themselves their own boundaries. They're the ones that also like work till 10 o'clock at night just because they feel like, they're helping other people out as opposed to looking after themselves. And these people will learn very, very quickly once you put like a framework and structure in place that they have no boundaries with themselves. That's a beautiful element of finding a framework, is that you almost, through the curation and the practice, you start finding boundaries that will make you have tough, difficult conversations, or it'll make you act differently so that, you can start focusing on yourself, because you should be able to think about yourself first before others. And then, put yourself in a scenario where you're getting what you need out of the day before someone else exploits you for something that they need you to do. And whether it's coming from a good place or whether you would truly want to help others, if you put something in place where you're now starting to look at your nutrition, or you starting looking at your exercise, or you now started, thinking about, prepping your food, or, spending a little bit of time on yourself in the mornings, or going for a walk in the mornings, or whatever it is. And every single time it's swayed by you doing something for someone else. It's a really highlighting factor about where your work needs to happen if you are to take care of yourself a little bit better. And then the other end of the spectrum, those are the jelly-like people. And then the people on the other side are those rigid glass type of people, those vases that will, when they're knocked over, they shatter into 1,000 pieces. Those people that set up rigid expectations, and they have a framework that is cast iron in nature, and they tell themselves that they're going to do this and they're going to stick to it 1,000,000%. And when life happens, and when the realities of what life is that you're not going to stick to it, but the process needs to have a framework and a structure, is that they hit the fuck it button with all that they do. And this is like quite common within the nutritional perspective, because the nutrition people, or the people that have these firm, restricted routines, boundaries for a set period of time, normally these people are the ones that also choose the really, really aggressive diets to go on, because they think that they can nail it, or they think that they can just do it, and get it over and done with, or they think that they can be 100%. These are the ones that are like glass, where they touch the floor and they break into 1,000 pieces once they have a little bit of external pressure. Once they have, caved by having a bite of the food, or even when they've just said to themselves in their head, oh, I'll be okay, I've done really well this week, I can let myself off this weekend. Those small behaviors will then crash them into 1,000 pieces, and then they will end up back at square one because they hit the fuck it button and they're shattered into 1,000 pieces. These people will really struggle with the expectations. They will think that they should be on the top end echelons. They should be the people that are getting 100% from the process. They also, want to get their money's worth. These people are definitely the ones that will say, oh, wow, I'm paying this for the coaching. You better be on point, and you better be getting 100% of the intensity that I'm bringing to you. You must bring it to me. But yeah, the first people that will hit the fuck it button and then, not show up for their check-in the week after. But the blend to find where you are is a starting position. And that's why that framework, or that consistency element, is so key. Because once you find this framework that you implement, and you see where you sit on this scale of jelly to glass, and you can start working from there, because you will sort of sit on that framework somewhere. And maybe you're a bit of both, and maybe you do need to have more boundaries with yourself, but equally you need to stop expecting the world from yourself if you are to crash, you are to get bumped, or you are to, hit the floor like the glass vase, but not shatter into 1,000 pieces. The goal is for you to be able to understand that either way, with whatever framework you're going to get, you're never going to be 100%. This old adage of, 100% or nothing, or all or nothing mentality, or just the all mentality. where you're expecting a million things from yourself, regardless of the factual information that you did fuck all for the last 4 weeks. Like, it's just a mentality that it's a false perception of where we are in time. But once you find that framework and you start it and you practice it, you'll slowly see where you are in factual information, where you stand on your ability to do this framework that you've got. And then that's where the work really, really happens and really, really starts, because you can see factually how far you are away from the reality of where you really sit within your head. If you feel like you are a person that can really, really nail it, but you're now doing a process that you're doing 50% of the process, it really shows you where you can work. And the beauty of a framework is that once you practice it for a period of time, you can make improvements on it. You can navigate it to a point where you are refining it, you are improving it, and you're being malleable with it so that it can go with you wherever you need to. The beauty of any type of framework, or should be the beauty of any type of framework, if it's utilized correctly, is going to be if you can transfer it into all environments. And once you know that you are a different person around friends, then you're a different person around family, but you're also a different person on your own, you'll slowly realize that you'll need practice in all of these areas. And like, you may be amazing with your framework, you may be amazing with your structure and routine in the absence of other individuals. Like, you know, on your own, you may be have fantastic discipline, you may have fantastic self-constraint, or you may just find it super easy to follow what you wanted to do, or, you know, just whatever you set out, you complete. However, in the presence of other people, you may find that you start to turn to jelly. You start to be on that side of things, or you start to be someone that just falls in with the crowd, or just does exactly what other people want in those scenarios. And that's okay. And that's what that framework allows you to identify. But it only comes with you putting it in place and seeing how it goes. And as much as you know, the buzzword is framework, it's almost just putting a plan in place. And like with anything, is that it's never about whether you did the plan 100%. It's actually whether it's the fact that you placed your intention on making a plan and you headed towards the goal of being 100%, or the goal of doing it as much as you can, which allows you to do it as much as you can. So the easiest way to make sure that you have a framework and a setup, and the easiest one that we use at Autonomy is, you know, we start really, really basic, and we will move up from there. So, you know, initially, the framework will involve 10,000 steps. You know, you can split this, and even if you want to break this down even further, you can break the 10,000 steps into chunks. So you can do 2,000 to 3,000 in the morning before you go to work. You can do, you know, 3,000 to 4,000 to 6,000 after work, and then you can do 1,000 to 2,000 in your lunch break. That would be a good framework to start with. And then once you have that, you would look at your nutrition. So, you know, a framework with nutrition is key, because the framework works so effectively, and any framework works effectively because you're giving yourself constraints. There is nothing in this world that can be done without constraints. You know, too much choice, or the element of or ultimate choice, will only lead to no decision, or a really poor decision based on overwhelm. And if you are wanting to kind of make, you know, if you're wanting to put yourself in the best position to be in a good body compositional shape all year round, or be in a good place where you're feeding yourself for performance, or just in a good place, you'll always need to give yourself some constraints. For example, you know, I'm sitting in Dubai now. It's expensive to buy food from Waitrose or Carrefour or Spinneys or whichever one, and it's the same price for you to go out for dinner. Now, that's ultimate choice, right? I can go to Deliveroo and I can get whatever food, because it's actually cheaper for me to go on Deliveroo than it is for me to go and get some chicken, some potatoes, and some veggies from the shop. That's just true. But if I wasn't to give myself boundaries, or give myself a rule to work with, or a framework to work off, then when I came to dinner every single night, I'd be overwhelmed, and I'd be, you know, utilizing my complete emotions to make these decisions. You know, one night feeling particularly healthy, quote unquote, I'll probably get a Lebanese chicken sheath and some veggies and some rice. But then on a Thursday or a Friday or a Saturday, when I'm feeling a bit more weekend vibes, or had a really busy fucking day like a Thursday is, then it's not going to be particularly a great choice because I'm waiting for my emotions to go from. So I have to give myself constraints because choice is going to be endless. And if you and the consumer world, the marketing world, and the world of like buying shit is always going to have this element of complete choice. They want to show you that they're giving you variety, they're giving you multiple things to choose from because it's more diverse, and it'll give you the ability to pay for stuff and buy it for it because you'll always have something that you want, or they will always have something that you want. But in that essence, we never really confine and constrain our restrictions down to things that we should have. And the framework and the things around nutrition allow you to get some type of constraints, because there will be constraints. Like, you can't just eat what you want. And whoever tells you, or these people, like personal trainers or online coaches, they say, oh, we'll diet you down without restriction, or we'll live a lifestyle without restriction. Fuck off. Like, you haven't been coaching enough to understand that if you're, or maybe these online coaches have never been big before. They've never been fat. Not some, 50-60% of the population of online coaches or PTs were born out the womb with fucking abs, or born with zero empathy because they don't understand what it's like to be tough, or be larger, or be obese, or be unhappy with the way that they look to a point that they are eating because of it. Whereas, let's say, I've come from that zone. I've come from the area of where I used to be massive, to now being able in control of what I want and in control of the way I look. But people like me, and people like who have utilized food to be large, and also now utilizing food as fuel for later down the line in performance, if you told them to eat without restriction, that wouldn't just be one plate of food. If you told me 10 years ago, eat without restriction for dinner, Nate, you'll be absolutely fine, I'd have 3 times the size of a portion that would result in me gaining body fat. And that isn't a great thing for someone that is trying to control their body fat, right? So the old element of you're never going to have restrictions is like saying, oh, you can use an American Express and you can use it without having a limit on it. At some point, you're going to have to pay that motherfucker back. And these people like American Express are trying to entice you with deals. Like, these online coaches and PTs are trying to entice you with telling you that there is no restrictions. You can do what you want as long as as long as you're making the choices, you're happy. Fuck off. Like, there's always going to be a price to pay for the actions that you take. So I would rather come here and tell you and tell all my clients and tell people like this, that there is always going to be some level of restriction depending on what you thought was normal. If you think normal is eating 3 bags of crisps a day and snacking on snacks all of the time, you're going to feel restricted when you try and manage your food intake. And it isn't going to be particularly useful if you continue eating those 3 bags of crisps and snacks, because you're not going to be able to stay within a calorie range if your goal is to reduce your body composition, or if your goal is to maintain your weight in a healthy weight range. You're not going to be able to not care, and you're going to not be able to have restrictions. You're going to always feel some level of restriction compared to the old version of you. And those constraints have to be there, because you can be flexible and you can have different food choices. Now, there's no good or bad food choices, but if the goal is to maintain, and the goal is to potentially lose some weight or maintain your weight in a healthy range, you're going to have to have some constraints on the amount of calories that you eat. And that's what this framework does. The framework allows you to understand the constraints, understand what's potentially right and what's wrong for someone that wants to maintain their weight and someone that wants to lose weight. So as much as that is a ramble, and much as that is a little bit of a ruffle some feathers, that there has to be constraints. There has to be, when choice is infinite, to make a great choice, you have to narrow down and decipher down what you're choosing from. The research is really clear from a choice perspective. The more choices that we have, the less likelihood of us making the right choice is. And I think one of the biggest tools of the modern person will be deciphering and giving themselves constraints when trying to make better decisions than just short-term gratification. And that's why a framework is so powerful when it comes to giving you the practice, the rude awakening to say, look, these are the boundaries that you need to stay between, and ultimately allowing you to be consistent. Because once you find a routine that you can be consistent, once you can find a routine that allows you to repeat these variables of habits and structures and training and steps and nutrition, you then are able to get better. Everyone needs a framework. Everyone needs to be able to have constraints, and everyone needs to have the ability to offer themselves the repeatable variables of consistency. But I don't see that's going to happen if people do not put a framework or a routine in place, and at least try and find out where they sit on that spectrum of jelly to glass. Because you will sit somewhere on that framework, and you'll need to kind of get better on those areas to be able to manage your routine and manage your variables as best as you can. It's okay to have a diary that moves and sways with the wind and can be changed in and out. My diary is 75% full and left 25% for, all life's eventualities. And it's able to move and it's able to navigate, but it still has this backbone of the spine, just like the human body does, has a backbone of a spine and bones, but it's able to do wonderful things with the joints that it has when it's not rigid. And it's the same with a structure and a routine and a framework. So as much as that was a ramble, that was episode number 2 for a quick one about why you should have a structure, a framework, and ultimately, hopefully you learn a little bit about choice and deciphering why we need to have constraints when we're looking from a food perspective as well. So hopefully you enjoyed episode 2, and chat to you soon.